Welcome to the KEP Knowledge English Podcast. I'm your host, James Rivers, and I'm thrilled to have you join us on this journey of learning and discovery.
And I'm Sophia Wells. Whether you're looking to improve your English skills or dive into insightful discussions on a range of topics, you're in the right place.
Here on KEP, we explore everything from language learning tips to thought provoking conversations that will challenge your perspective and expand your knowledge.
Each episode will bring you fresh insights, practical advice, and a little bit of fun along the way. So grab your headphones and let's get started.
This is KEP Knowledge English Podcast. Let's dive in. Hey, folks, welcome back to another episode. I'm James, resident overthinker, professional list maker, and yes, the guy who once genuinely wondered if his houseplants were judging him.
That's oddly specific, and honestly, I feel that. I'm Sophia, by the way, full-time host, part-time stress ball, and queen of spiraling over things that haven't even almost happened.
Oh, I love that. Queen of spiraling. Put that on a mug. You know, we joke, but I think everyone tuning in today has had these nights.
Oh, yeah. You're lying in bed, ready to sleep, and suddenly your brain's like, hey, remember that awkward thing you said in 2014? And then, boom, sleep gone.
Exactly. Or that sneaky voice that whispers, what if everything goes wrong tomorrow? Even when there's no reason to think it will.
You're brushing your teeth, and suddenly, did I email that file? What if I get fired? What if I'm not good enough? All in 30 seconds flat.
And it's wild because most of the time nothing bad even happens. But the stress? Still very real.
Right? Like, I once stressed for 2 solid weeks about a dentist appointment. Then I got so anxious, I canceled it because I was stressed about being stressed.
So meta, worry about the worry.
It's like anxiety's got Wi Fi, it shows up everywhere, whether you invited it or not.
I love that. Anxiety's got Wi-Fi. It's true, though. It doesn't matter if it's about money, health, relationships, or just existing. Worry finds a way.
And honestly, that's what we're digging into today. Why do we worry so much, especially about things that haven't even happened?
Is it just our imagination running wild? Or is something deeper going on beneath the surface?
Spoiler alert, it's not just the triple espresso or social media doom scrolling. There's actual science and psychology behind it.
So let's break it down together. If you've ever asked yourself, why am I like this episode's for you.
Grab your snacks, put your phone on Do Not Disturb, and let's figure out what's really going on with our worry brains. Okay, James, get ready for this one. I was reading this article the other day, and it basically said that most of our worries aren't even about the present. They're like emotional reruns.
Emotional reruns? Like our brains are stuck watching the same old drama series?
Exactly. It's like our mind goes, I recognize this situation. Time to panic like we did in 2007.
Wow, that's kind of disturbing and hilarious at the same time. But it makes sense. Ever notice how sometimes you get nervous about a totally harmless situation and you can't figure out why?
Oh, yeah, like before presentations. I used to get a full-on stomach ache and think, why am I freaking out? I know this stuff. But then I realized, seventh grade. I forgot my lines in the school play and the class laughed.
There it is. Your brain stored that moment as danger. So now, even years later, anything remotely similar triggers that same fight or flight alarm.
It's wild, right? Your brain's trying to be helpful, like, alert, this could be dangerous, but the context is totally outdated.
It's like having a security system that still thinks raccoons are home invaders because one broke in 10 years ago.
Honestly, my brain's been chasing emotional raccoons for decades.
Here's the thing though, Those memories, they leave emotional imprints, and we carry them into adulthood, sometimes without even realizing it.
Which means we're reacting to today with emotions from years ago. No wonder it feels confusing.
Totally. So when we feel anxious for no reason, maybe the reason just isn't now. It's then.
That part. Our brains are wired to protect us, but sometimes they're using outdated info, like trying to drive with a map from 1995.
Perfect analogy. And unless we pause and notice the pattern, we keep letting those old fears run the show.
So if your worry feels bigger than the moment, don't ignore it. Get curious. It might be history knocking on the door. So here's something that blew my mind. Our ability to handle stress as adults, a lot of it comes down to what we experienced as kids.
Yeah, I've read about that too. It's not just what happens now, it's the emotional training we got growing up.
Right. Like if your childhood was full of chaos, shouting, or unpredictability, your brain basically learned to stay on high alert.
That's what they call survival mode, right? Always scanning for danger, even when there isn't any.
Exactly. And if you were a kid who had to constantly tiptoe around arguments or handle grown up stuff way too early, your nervous system remembers that.
Meanwhile, kids who had stable, calm support, they learned, hey, the world's not out to get me every second.
And fast forward to adulthood. One person faces a problem and thinks, I can handle this. Another, oh no, the sky is falling.
That's where attachment theory comes in. It's all about how our early relationships shaped our sense of safety.
Oof, that hits. I grew up with a single mom who did her best, but we moved constantly. I remember being scared a lot. Not of her, but just of the instability.
Yeah, that kind of experience can wire your brain to expect uncertainty. So as an adult, your default becomes anxiety, even when things are okay.
And it's not about blame, it's just what your system adapted to. But if you don't recognize it, you end up reacting like that scared kid again and again.
Exactly. Grown body, grown job, grown bills. But inside, that little kid's still calling the shots.
Which explains why sometimes we overreact to the tiniest things, like someone being late or not texting back.
Because it's not really about that moment, it's about what that moment represents: abandonment, rejection, uncertainty.
So, if we want to worry less, maybe we've got to look at the past with a little more compassion and a lot more curiosity. Okay, James, have you heard of this thing called learned helplessness?
Yep, and it's as heavy as it sounds. It's basically when life knocks you down so many times, you start believing there's no point in getting back up.
Exactly. Like, let's say you tried asking for help as a kid and got ignored, or worse, mocked. Eventually, you stop asking.
Yeah. Or you studied your butt off, still failed the test, and decided, well, guess I'm just not smart.
Right. You stop trying, not because you're lazy, but because deep down your brain thinks, why bother?
It's like emotional muscle memory. You get used to the pain of failure, so your brain tries to preemptively protect you by avoiding anything that might hurt again. Exactly. We're not the same people we were back then. We have new tools, new awareness. We're not trapped in the same chapter.
But it's hard to believe that when your brain keeps rerunning failure montages like a sad movie.
That's why the first step is simply noticing the pattern. Ask yourself, am I avoiding this because I don't want it or because I'm afraid it won't work?
Big difference. And even bigger courage to try again after being let down.
Trying doesn't mean you'll succeed right away. It just means you're not letting fear make the decisions anymore.
And honestly, that shift from helpless to hopeful, that's everything. All right, James, real talk. I used to freak out anytime someone raised their voice around me, Even if it wasn't at me, my whole body would just shut down.
Wow. And it wasn't really about the moment, was it?
Nope. Took me a long time to realize. It reminded me of my dad yelling when I was little. Totally different situation, same emotional reaction.
That right there is the power of emotional memory. Our bodies remember things we don't even consciously think about.
Exactly. But here's the cool part. Once I noticed the connection, I could actually start changing how I reacted.
That's huge. And that's what therapists call rewriting the narrative.
So, what does that mean practically?
It means revisiting that old memory, but instead of just reliving the pain, you imagine it with the support you should have had.
Okay, wait. So I go back in my mind. And then what? Hug my younger self?
Kind of. Picture your younger self in that moment, and instead of judgment, give them kindness. Tell them, you were scared. That's okay. You didn't deserve that.
Whoa, that already feels emotional, but also healing.
It really is. Because when we change how we feel about the past, we start changing how we respond in the present.
So instead of panicking, I can pause and think, that's not now. That's just an old alarm going off.
Exactly. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes. You're literally rewiring your brain to respond with compassion instead of fear.
It's like turning down the volume on an old soundtrack you didn't even realize was still playing.
Yes, we can't change what happened, but we can change the meaning we carry forward.
And that shift, that's where the real healing starts. Okay, James, let's say anxiety hits you like a freight train. You're spiraling. What do you actually do in the moment?
The $1 million question. When your brain's racing and your chest feels tight, that's when grounding comes in.
Grounding, like going outside barefoot and hugging a tree?
That actually helps for some people. But I mean, grounding in the mental, emotional sense. Bringing your attention back to the here and now.
All right, walk me through it. Because when I'm in panic mode, stay calm feels like telling a tornado to chill.
Totally. The goal isn't to calm down, it's to connect with reality. One method I love is the 5 as 4 3 2 1 technique.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that. You list five things you see, four you can touch, three you hear, two you smell, one you taste, right?
That's the one. It brings your brain out of fear fantasy and into the real moment. You literally shift focus from anxiety to observation.
I tried it once in a grocery store when I felt a panic attack creeping up. I stared at the cereal boxes like they were fine art. It actually helped.
Yup, because anxiety lives in the future. But grounding brings you back to what's actually happening right now. Usually nothing dangerous.
Sometimes I just hold a cold glass of water. The temperature kind of shocks my senses in a good way.
Perfect example. Touch, breath, sound. All of it reminds your nervous system, hey, you're safe. This isn't then, this is now.
I think we forget that sometimes the most powerful tools are super simple.
Totally. Grounding doesn't erase the anxiety, but it gives you space to respond instead of react.
And that space, that's where we take back control. Okay, here's a curveball. What if we're actually making our anxiety worse by trying too hard to avoid it?
Oh, 100%. A lot of us think, if I just avoid risky or uncomfortable things, I'll feel safer. But that can backfire big time.
Right? Like I used to avoid networking events because I didn't want to be awkward, but then I'd feel lonely and behind, which made me even more anxious.
That's the trap. Avoidance feels good in the moment, but it feeds long term anxiety. Psychologists call it safety behavior.
Wait, so the stuff we do to feel safe actually keeps us stuck?
Yup. Like avoiding public speaking or refusing to try new things. It shrinks your world. And the smaller your world gets, the more threatening everything outside of it starts to feel.
It's like living in a bubble, but the bubble just keeps getting tighter.
Exactly. The irony is, we don't become safer, we become more scared.
So, what's the fix? Do we just charge into every scary thing like we're action heroes?
Not quite. It's not about being reckless. It's about accepting that some discomfort is normal, that life does involve risk, and that's okay.
I love that. Like, instead of trying to eliminate all fear, we learn to live with a little bit of it and trust ourselves to handle it.
That's the sweet spot. Not no fear, just less control, more confidence.
Honestly, some of my best memories came from moments I almost talked myself out of.
Same. Growth usually shows up just past the point where we're tempted to turn back.
So maybe next time we feel that urge to hide or avoid, we pause and ask, is this actually dangerous or just uncomfortable?
And if it's just discomfort, maybe that's our sign to lean in, not run away. All right, Soph, here's a question. Have you ever tried talking to your younger self?
Oh, totally. I actually wrote a letter to little me during therapy once. I cried like 5 minutes in, and I'm not even a crier.
Yeah, it's powerful stuff. We carry these younger versions of ourselves around, whether we realize it or not. And sometimes they're the ones freaking out, not grown up us.
You're so right. Like when I panic about someone not texting me back, it's not just today me being insecure, it's 10-year-old me feeling ignored all over again.
Exactly. That's your inner child going, wait, am I being abandoned again? And unless we recognize that, we just react on autopilot.
So, how do we help that younger version of us feel safe? I mean, we can't go back in time.
True, but we can offer that younger self what they needed right now through words, through kindness, even just by listening.
So, like, in your head, you picture your 7-year-old self and say, hey, I know you were scared back then, but I've got you now.
Exactly. It sounds kind of cheesy at first, but it's deeply healing. You show that scared part of you that things are different now, that you're different now.
I love that. Honestly, it changed the way I talk to myself. I used to be so harsh. Now I catch myself and go, would I ever say that to a child? If not, then why say it to me?
That's such a great rule. Because deep down, that child is still listening, still hoping someone will finally say, you're enough.
So if anyone listening feels stuck or overwhelmed, maybe it's not about fixing something. Maybe it's just about reconnecting.
Start there. Say hi to that little you. Reassure them. Let them know the grown up version has their back.
Because healing doesn't always start with big changes. Sometimes it starts with just being gentle with the kid still living inside you.
All right, let's get into the mind games. You know those thoughts that just barge in uninvited? Like, what if I mess this up? What if I'm not good enough?
Ugh, yes. My brain loves to throw a worst case scenario party, 2 a.m. sharp every night. No snacks, just dread.
Sounds familiar. And the tricky part is, those thoughts feel so real, even when there's no evidence behind them.
Right? I could get 20 compliments on something, but one awkward look from someone, and my brain's like, welp, guess I'm a failure.
That's the negativity bias. Our brains are wired to focus on threats more than good stuff. It's survival instinct, just a little outdated for modern life.
So, how do we fight back? Because just yelling stop at your thoughts doesn't exactly work.
True, it's not about stopping them, it's about challenging them. One thing I ask people is, what's the actual evidence for this thought?
Ooh, like cross examining the thought like it's on trial? That shift is powerful. I used to be terrified of launching new projects. Now I ask, What if it works? And suddenly I'm not frozen anymore.
It's like cognitive judo. You take the worry's energy and redirect it somewhere useful.
And when a thought keeps coming back, I write it down. Something about seeing it on paper makes it lose its grip.
That's a great technique. Journaling turns vague fear into something you can examine and sometimes laugh at.
Exactly. Like, really, brain? You think one awkward pause in conversation means I'll die alone? Dramatic much?
Your brain needs an Oscar.
So do yours. But for real, when we learn to respond to negative thoughts with curiosity instead of panic, that's when we start reclaiming control.
And that's when anxiety loses its spotlight. So let's bring this full circle. We've talked about anxiety, childhood triggers, inner kids, grounding, flipping thoughts. And here's the big question: what now?
Right? Like, okay, I get why I'm anxious. I see where it started. But what do I do with all that?
Well, first, just recognizing the pattern is huge. Seriously, most people go their whole lives reacting without ever asking why.
Totally. It's like shining a flashlight in a dark attic. The mess might still be there, but at least now you can see what you're working with.
And the moment you see it, you get to make choices. You're not stuck on autopilot anymore.
So when the anxious thoughts show up, I can pause and ask, is this old fear or is this real?
Exactly. You start responding instead of just reacting. That's real power right there.
And healing isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's just softer self talk, choosing to stay in the moment, saying, I've got this, even when it doesn't feel true yet.
And you don't have to get it perfect. You just have to stay curious and keep showing up for yourself.
Honestly, if there's one thing I wish someone told me sooner, it's this. You're not broken. You're just carrying stuff no one ever helped you unpack.
Wow, that's beautiful. And it's so true. There's no shame in struggling, but there's real strength in facing it with honesty and compassion.
So if you're listening and you felt overwhelmed, anxious, or just plain stuck, you're not alone. You're not weak. You're just human.
And being human means you get to grow. You get to change the story.
So take a breath, talk kindly to yourself, and maybe even write that letter to your younger self tonight.
That's your challenge, folks. One small step toward freedom, because fear doesn't get the final word. You do.
Thanks for hanging with us. We'll see you next time.